The most confusing moment in an avoidant attachment pattern is not the first date. It is not the first kiss. It is not even the first argument. It is the moment after emotional closeness when you think you've finally reached them, and then they disappear. One night you are talking like real partners. They are open, warm, maybe even tender in a way you have been waiting for. And then the next day, it is like a door quietly closed. Replies slow down. Plans get fuzzy. Their tone goes flat. You start reading the air for danger. You replay every sentence. You wonder if you said too much, wanted too much, felt too much. In this episode, I am going to explain why that specific moment triggers an avoidance system, how the control loop works stage by stage, and what you should do so you stop chasing someone who is regulating themselves with distance. If this kind of clarity helps your nervous system settle, subscribe. PsychBond is a daily decoder for psychology, relationships, and avoidant and anxious attachment patterns, so you stop guessing. Here is the hard truth we need to start with. For an avoidance system, closeness can feel like threat. Not because you did something wrong, and not because they feel nothing. It is because intimacy creates a sense of dependence. And dependence can activate fear in a nervous system that learned early that relying on people is risky. So when emotional closeness happens, their body does not just register connection. Their body registers exposure. Their body registers obligation. Their body registers the possibility of being needed, being seen, being accountable, and being trapped. And the fastest way to turn that threat signal down is to create distance. That distance can look like disappearing, getting busy, changing the subject, acting cold, picking a small fight, or suddenly needing space. If you are anxious, your body experiences that as abandonment, and you try to restore closeness fast. That is exactly how the loop locks in. So let us map the loop in a way that makes it simple and undeniable. This is the control loop behind disappearing after closeness. Stage 1 is approach. Stage 2 is closeness. Stage 3 is threat spike. Stage 4 is distance as regulation. Stage 5 is anxious pursuit and protest. Stage 6 is reconnection and reset. Then the cycle repeats, often with more intensity and less safety each time. I want you to hear each stage like it is happening in real life, because once you see it, you stop taking it personally. Stage 1 approach. This is when the avoidant partner moves toward you. They initiate, they text, they flirt, they plan. They suddenly feel warm. Often, this is not random. It happens when they feel safe enough. Safe can mean you are not asking for much. Safe can mean you are slightly distant. Safe can mean they miss you. Safe can mean they had a lonely moment. Safe can mean you are doing your own life, and they can come close without feeling swallowed. In this stage, they can be incredibly present. They can feel like the version of them you have been hoping for. And your anxious system relaxes. You think, finally, we are back. Stage 2, closeness. This is the moment emotional intimacy actually happens. You talk about something real. They open up. You share feelings. You have a connected night. You have sex that feels bonded. You share vulnerability. You talk about the future. You hear words like, I miss you. I have not felt this with others. I feel safe with you. I am glad you are in my life. In the anxious mind, this feels like progress. In the avoidant body, this can feel like exposure. This is where the story and the body disagree. Their conscious mind may like you, want you, even love you, but their nervous system interprets the closeness as danger. Not danger from you, danger from dependence, danger from needing, danger from being needed. Stage 3 threat spike. This is the key. After closeness, there is often a delayed threat response. It does not always happen during the closeness. Sometimes it happens the next morning. Sometimes it happens the next day. Sometimes it happens after you leave, when they are alone and their brain starts scanning. They begin to interpret the closeness as a loss of autonomy. They may feel a wave of discomfort, shame, or irritation for no clear reason. They may start replaying what they said, feeling exposed. They may think, "I should not have shared that." They may think, "Now they will expect more." They may think, "Now I owe them something." They may think, "I am losing my freedom." They may not even have clear thoughts. They may just feel tight. Their body becomes the alarm. And if they are not skilled at staying present through that alarm, they reach for the fastest exit. Stage 4 distance as regulation. This is the disappear. It can be subtle or dramatic. Subtle is slow replies, shorter messages, less warmth, less initiation, vague plans. Dramatic is silence, canceling, ghosting for days, sudden coldness, turning affectionate into dry. Some avoidant people disappear physically. Some disappear emotionally while still being present on the surface. The purpose is the same. It is to turn down the alarm in their body by increasing space. And here is what matters. In their system, distance brings relief. The moment they create distance, the threat signal lowers. Their brain learns, distance works. That reinforcement is what makes the pattern repeat. Stage 5, anxious pursuit and protest. Now your nervous system activates. When they disappear after closeness, you experience it as a sudden drop. Your body goes into scanning. You start seeking explanations. You text more. You ask if they are okay. You soften your tone. You try not to be needy, but you cannot relax. You may protest. You may say, "Why are you doing this?" You may cry. You may send long messages. You may pull back and then reach again. You do what anxious attachment does when connection feels threatened. You try to restore closeness. In the avoidant system, your pursuit can feel like pressure, and that pressure intensifies the threat signal, so they pull further away. This is where you start thinking you are the problem. You think, if I could just be calmer, they would stay. If I could just not need anything, they would not disappear. But needing is not wrong. The problem is the mismatch in regulation strategies. You regulate with closeness. They regulate with distance. Stage 6, reconnection and reset. Eventually, the avoidant person returns. They text. They act normal. Sometimes they apologize. Sometimes they pretend nothing happened. They might be affectionate again. And your nervous system experiences relief. The relief is so strong that it can erase the pain. You feel grateful they are back. You tell yourself, "Okay, we are okay." You may even avoid bringing up the disappearance because you do not want to trigger it again. And that is how the loop becomes the relationship. You start walking on eggshells after closeness. You start policing your own emotions. You start shrinking your needs to keep them from disappearing. And slowly, you stop being in a relationship and start being in a management system. Now, let us talk about the core misunderstanding that keeps you stuck. Anxious people often believe the disappearance is a message about love, like they disappeared because they do not care, or they disappeared because you were too much, or they disappeared because you messed up. Sometimes a disappearance is disinterest. We are not going to pretend it never is. But when the pattern specifically happens after closeness, after intimacy, after vulnerability, it is often not disinterest. It is deactivation. It is the nervous system attempting to regain control. That does not make it okay. It just tells you what you are dealing with. Because if you misread deactivation as a communication problem, you will keep trying to talk your way into safety. And safety does not come from words when the loop is nervous system based. Safety comes from structure and consistent behavior over time. Let me make this even clearer. Emotional closeness creates a new expectation in the anxious mind. You think, we are closer now, so the baseline should rise. More consistency, more openness, more contact. In an avoidant nervous system, emotional closeness can create the opposite expectation. They think, we are closer now, so I need to protect my space. The anxious person experiences closeness as a reason to deepen. The avoidant person experiences closeness as a reason to retreat. That is the collision. And if you do not have a shared repair skill, the collision becomes the relationship. Now, what should you do? First, you stop chasing the gap. Not as a tactic, as a boundary for your nervous system. When they disappear after closeness, your instinct will be to close the distance. But that often escalates the loop. The more you push, the more they feel threatened. The more they pull, the more you feel abandoned. Instead, you do one calm anchor message, and then you stop. One message. Simple. Something like, I enjoyed being close with you. When things get quiet after that, it does not work for me. I am here to talk when you are ready. Then you step back. That message does two things. It names the pattern without attack, and it sets a standard without begging. Then you watch what happens next. A person with capacity will repair. They will come back and talk about it. A person without capacity will either continue disappearing or will return without repair. Both are information. Second, you stop rewarding disappear and return with full access. This is the part many anxious people miss. Every time they disappear and then return, and you go right back into warmth, sex, emotional availability, you teach their nervous system that the loop works. They get closeness, then they get relief, then they get closeness again, without consequence. If you want the pattern to change, the return must come with repair. Not punishment. Repair. That means when they come back, you do not pretend nothing happened. You calmly say, I am glad you are here. I need to understand what happened after we were close. I need a plan for what you will do next time you feel that urge to go distant. If they cannot do that, you are not in a relationship with repair. You are in a cycle. Third, you need to know what repair actually looks like, because many people accept fake repair. Fake repair is, sorry, I was busy. Then it happens again. Fake repair is, I just need space. Then they do not give you a framework. Fake repair is, I am like this, you know me. Then they ask you to adapt. Real repair is naming the pattern, taking responsibility, and offering a different behavior. It can be as simple as, when I feel overwhelmed after closeness, I will not go silent. I will send you a message that I need a day to regulate, and I will check in tomorrow evening. That is repair. That is structure. Now, let us go deeper on why closeness triggers the disappearance. Many avoidant people learned early that closeness equals demand. They learned that being seen leads to criticism. They learned that being needed leads to pressure. They learned that emotions lead to mess. They learned that if they stay open, someone will take too much. So their nervous system treats intimacy like a prelude to losing themselves. When you are emotionally close, they may unconsciously feel like you now have a claim on them, even if you are not demanding anything. Their body anticipates the demand. That anticipation is the threat spike. So they regain control by pulling away. They might even frame it as logic. I need to focus on work. I am not ready for a relationship. I do not like labels. But the deeper truth is, their body is trying to get away from the feeling of being held. They do not want to be held. They want to touch and retreat. Now, if you are anxious, there is a second layer. After closeness, you often feel a vulnerability hangover too. You shared. You opened. You were real. So when they disappear, it hits a deeper wound. It feels like I should not have shown my heart. It feels like I should have been cooler. It feels like closeness is dangerous. That is how these cycles create trauma inside the relationship. Not huge events, repeated small ruptures after closeness, repeated unspoken goodbyes. You start associating love with instability. You start anticipating loss right after connection. And that anticipation becomes your baseline anxiety. So, your work is to protect your nervous system from those ruptures. You do not do it by closing your heart. You do it by requiring repair and consistency before you give deeper intimacy. Intimacy is earned by safety, not by chemistry. Now, let us run a scenario so you can hear the loop as dialogue. You have a deep night. They open up about their family. You feel closer. You say, I feel really connected to you. They say, me too. The next day, you send a warm message. They respond hours later with something flat. You feel it. You ask, are you okay? They say, just busy. You ask when you will see them. They say, not sure. This week is crazy. You start feeling the panic. You think, did I say too much? You send another message, supportive, soft. They do not respond. Your body goes hot. You check your phone. You start spiraling. 2 days later, they return with a casual message like, hey. Your body floods with relief, and you respond instantly, warm. You might even avoid mentioning the silence because you do not want to ruin the reconnection. That is the loop. And the cost is you start associating closeness with danger. You start fearing the thing you want most. So, what do you do differently in that scenario? You do not chase. You do not protest. You do not beg. You anchor. One message, then space. When they return, you require repair, calmly. If they cannot repair, you do not deepen intimacy again. You do not hand them your heart and then act surprised when they vanish. You protect yourself with structure. Now we need to talk about the biggest trap. Many anxious people say, if I just give them enough space, they will come back and stay. Space can help an avoidance system regulate, yes, But space without standards is just abandonment training for you. The goal is not to become so low need that they never deactivate. The goal is to be in a relationship where deactivation is handled with communication and repair, not disappearance. So you do not just give space. You ask for a new agreement. If you need space after closeness, tell me. Give me a return point. Do not leave me guessing. That is not pressure. That is basic respect. Now, how do you know if this relationship can become secure? Look for these markers over the next 7 days. When you name the pattern, do they get curious or defensive? Do they take responsibility or blame you for having needs? Do they offer a plan or just an excuse? Do they follow through once, then repeat the old pattern? Do they return with repair or return with entitlement to access? These are the capacity markers. And here is a truth that will calm your anxious mind. You do not need to predict the future. You only need to observe capacity in the present. Capacity shows fast when you hold a standard. Now let us address the fear, because it sits in the background for many of you. What if I hold a standard and they leave? If they leave because you asked for basic communication and repair, they were never safe to build with. You were trying to build safety out of hope, and hope is not a foundation. Another fear is, what if I stop chasing and they never come back? Then the relationship was held together by your anxiety, and that is not love. That is labor. You cannot be the only one keeping the bridge standing. Now, let us talk about how to say the standard in a way that does not sound dramatic and does not invite a fight. You keep it simple and structural. I like being close with you. I want more closeness, not less. But when you go quiet after we connect, it makes me feel unsafe. I need a different pattern. If you feel overwhelmed, tell me, and set a time you will reconnect. If that cannot happen, I cannot keep doing this. That is calm, that is adult, that is self-respect. Then you stop talking. You let them answer, and you believe the answer. If they say they cannot do it, believe them. If they say you are too sensitive, believe them. If they say they will try, watch what they do. A relationship is not built by intentions. It is built by repeated behaviors. Now, we need to talk about the difference between a one-off quiet period and a pattern. Everyone has an off week. Everyone can get overwhelmed. But the pattern is specifically after closeness, specifically after emotional intimacy, specifically after bonding moments. If that is when they disappear, you are not dealing with random life stress. You are dealing with a closeness trigger. And a closeness trigger requires a relationship skill to manage, not more patience from you. Patience does not rewire a pattern if nothing changes. The only thing that changes patterns is new behavior, repeated over time. So the question becomes, are they practicing new behavior with you, or are you just practicing endurance? Now, I want to name something that is painful but freeing. A person can miss you and still not have capacity. A person can feel bonded and still not be able to stay. A person can return and still not be choosing repair. So do not use longing as proof. Do not use jealousy as proof. Do not use them coming back as proof. Use behavior as proof. Specifically, does closeness lead to more safety over time, or does closeness lead to the same disappearance over and over? If closeness reliably leads to disappearance, then your relationship is training your nervous system to fear intimacy. You cannot heal anxiety inside a system that keeps re-injuring it. Now, for the avoidant listener who recognizes themselves, Here is the clean way out that does not require you to betray yourself. The moment you feel that threat spike after closeness, you do not vanish. You send one honest message that protects both people. You say, "I feel overwhelmed after how close we were, and I do not want to go quiet on you. I need a day to settle, and I will check in tomorrow evening." That message does not trap you. It does not demand you perform intimacy. It simply prevents harm. It keeps trust intact. It gives your nervous system space without giving the other person panic. That is what maturity looks like. Now, if you are anxious, here is what maturity looks like for you. You stop trying to regulate their fear with your softness. You stop performing calmness as a way to earn consistency. You become calm through structure. You become calm because you know what you will do if the pattern continues. That is the real secret. The anxious nervous system settles when it trusts your own follow-through, not when it trusts their mood. So you build a plan inside yourself. If they disappear after closeness, I will do one anchor message and step back. If they return, I will require repair. If there is no repair, I will slow down intimacy and reduce access. If the pattern repeats, I will leave. That is not harsh. That is self-protection. Now, let us talk about the moment when they return, because that is where the loop either breaks or deepens. Many avoidant people return with casual energy. They act like nothing happened. They may even be playful. That casual return is tempting because it offers relief. Your body wants relief more than it wants truth. But if you accept the casual return, you teach the relationship that closeness rupture is normal. So you do something different. You keep your tone calm, but you do not skip the repair. You say, "I am glad to hear from you. Before we move forward, I want to talk about what happened after we were close. I need to know you can communicate when you feel overwhelmed." If they respond with defensiveness, blaming, or anger, that is not a small issue. That is a sign they cannot do repair. If they respond with openness, even if awkward, that is a sign there is capacity. The difference between avoidant and unsafe is often repair. An avoidant person who is growing can repair. An avoidant person who is not growing will punish you for asking for repair. Now, let us address early dating versus long-term. In early dating, you do not need a long history to justify your standard. If someone disappears after closeness in the first weeks, do not explain it away. Early dating is when people are on their best behavior. If they vanish after bonding moments early, you are seeing a pattern that will intensify later. The move is not to chase. The move is to observe and step back. You do not need a diagnosis. You need a standard. Consistent communication after closeness. If it is not there, you do not invest more. In long-term relationships, the move is still the same, but you add one more layer. You ask for a shared plan. What is our plan for after closeness? How do we handle the day after vulnerability? How do we handle overwhelm? The goal is to turn the disappear into a communicate. That is the shift. Now, I want to give you a final reframe that will make you feel powerful. The disappearance is not proof you are too much. The disappearance is proof that closeness activates something unresolved in them. You cannot love someone out of that. They have to build capacity. And capacity is built by tolerating closeness without running, by learning to name overwhelm, by learning to repair, by learning to stay. You can support that if they are doing it, but you cannot do it for them. Your job is to stop turning their nervous system pattern into your personal worth. Your job is to stop paying with anxiety for a relationship that does not protect you. If someone disappears after closeness and then returns as if nothing happened, you are allowed to require repair. You are allowed to slow down intimacy. You are allowed to step away. You are allowed to choose yourself. Because the goal is not to get someone to stop disappearing. The goal is to be with someone who can stay present when it matters. And if you are with someone who cannot, you do not make yourself smaller to fit their fear. You build a life that does not require you to beg for consistency. That is secure love. That is the path out of the loop. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.